Greetings, my lovelies. This is Blake here, and welcome to my review of WWE's WrestleMania 2016. As you can tell by the enthusiastic tone of my voice, this was an exciting event filled with awesome. And I was seriously considering making my entire review based around me sleeping because that more or less sums up the entirety of my feelings towards this year's WrestleMania. So, I thought this was a pretty shitty show. Although, in its defense, I do believe that part of my frustration stems from me experiencing a serious case of wrestling overload. Just a few days prior to this event, there was NXT TakeOver Dallas, and that was a very good show, one I would recommend you all watch, even though it's not among the best NXT specials, even when it's kind of underwhelming for NXT standards, it's still really good. And I'm not even counting the various Raws, SmackDowns, NXT programming, superstars or main events that I do generally try to watch leading into these. But when you take an NXT pay-per-view or their equivalent of a pay-per-view and put it just a few days prior to WrestleMania, the grandest stage of them all, which runs 5 hours long, and that's not even counting the 2-hour-long kickoff show. It's just too much. There's only so many beefy men in tights that I could watch before I just start getting burned out. And the only reason I don't feel the intense hatred towards this year's WrestleMania that I experienced when watching last year's Survivor Series is that I kept falling asleep before my anger could really build up. And I was so exhausted, like after about 2.5, 3 hours, I was drifting off that I just gave up watching it live, went on to do something else, and decided that I would, finish my viewing experience the following night. And I tried, but then the same thing started to happen right before the main event occurred. I began falling asleep once more, and I'm like, I'm tempted to just sleep through this because from what I hear, the match isn't very good. But if I'm going to write about it, if I'm going to talk about it, then I better fucking watch it. So I had to spend the following night after that finishing WrestleMania. So it took me 3 days to finish this fucking program because it was just so boring and at times just outright baffling. But I want to keep this video as short as possible because WrestleMania 2016 burned me out on the product, and I don't want to burn myself out any further talking about WrestleMania 2016. So let's bring up the list of matches, and I shall review them very briefly, one by one. Although I guess if I need to point this out, Roadblock was okay. There were some really good matches in it that were certainly worth checking out, but the program as a whole I thought was kind of underwhelming and awkwardly paced. But it was better than Fastlane at the absolute least. But then Fastlane was better than WrestleMania, so fuck that noise. So the kickoff show begins with the United States Championship defense, Kalisto versus Ryback. Now, I hate how they keep defending the United States Championship on the fucking pre-show. It's a personal pet peeve of mine, and all it's doing is making this belt seem very irrelevant, and that's going to hurt Kalisto because for the most part, his title reign has been defended on either Raw, SmackDown, or the kickoff show. I don't even know. Has he gotten a title defense on the main card of a pay-per-view yet? He may have. I don't remember. So that pisses me off. But because this was a 2 hour long kickoff show, nobody was or the majority of the audience hadn't really shown up yet. So it really looks like um, the auditorium is currently filled 50% capacity. I don't know if those are the exact numbers, but all I could notice while I was watching this match were all the empty seats in the background. And that just really is the worst kind of burial one of these belts could suffer, because the following Divas match somehow got the bigger audience, and that makes me sad. Story wise, this didn't really do anything for me, but to be fair, Hulu cut a lot of it out. My problem was Ryback wasn't a despicable enough villain. He actually seemed almost kind of sad that he has to pick on Kalisto, and that doesn't make him sympathetic, but it doesn't make me hate him either. But yeah, it wasn't a bad storyline. It just seemed like Ryback turned heel out of nowhere, and there wasn't the right build up to it. He hasn't been booked to be that strong. I mean, great job. He defeated Curtis Axel. Everybody defeats fucking Curtis Axel. But the match itself was actually all right. In fact, I'd say it was about as good as I could have hoped it would have been. I thought it played to their strengths very well. Ryback gets to show off his strength. Kalisto gets to show off his athleticism and speed. There were some cool moments, like when Ryback military presses Kalisto and walks up the stairs back into the ring. That was kind of awesome. And, Ryback made a convincing monster, and Kalisto made a convincing underdog. The only reason I wasn't really all that ecstatic about this was I didn't really feel any emotional payoff because I didn't really care for the story. So if you actually did like this feud, you should like this match perfectly fine. On a side note, Jerry the King Lawler needs to shut the fuck up. I hate his commentary on SmackDown because he's being a total dick, even more so than he was in the Attitude Era, but saying these stupid, unfunny things like, I went into Kalisto's locker room and he was using chapstick as deodorant. But back in the Attitude Era, it seemed like King would get more panicky and whiny once his favorite would be defeated and humiliated. You almost felt like the King was going through that same kind of humiliation, so you felt that catharsis, that kind of payback. But now it's like when things go against his expectations, he just kind of shrugs it off and says, oh, well, it was a fluke. So you don't really get that feeling of catharsis, and you just don't like listening to him. I actually had to put this on mute after a while. The next kickoff match was Team Bad and Blonde, which comprises of Naomi, Tamina, Summer, Emma, and Lana, versus Team Total Divas, Brie, Paige, Alicia Fox, Natalia, and Eva Marie, who they thought would get a babyface reaction. The only part that Hulu bothered showing was the tensions between Brie and Lana, and that was a pretty shitty-ass feud. But I'd rather that get resolved in a big match like this. Unfortunately, it didn't seem like they resolved it at all, which means either that was an anticlimactic end, or we're going to have more of it. I don't know if Brie's formally retired yet or not. Since she said she was planning on doing so pretty quickly. In this match's defense, it was actually harmless. You could tell everybody was trying hard to make it work. Even Eva Marie had a few cool moments. There were some botches. Brie's yes lock looked bad, but at least her reversal that led to it was kind of cool. But it was still evenly paced. I wasn't bored, even though I didn't really feel anything at all while watching it. So if you're invested in Total Divas and you like it when they do this kind of promotional matches, you might get a kick out of this, but I didn't care. The final kickoff match was the Usos versus the Dudley Boys, which this had an okay storyline, but it seemed like the Dudleys were more interested in brutalizing Roman Reigns than they were the Usos, so just kind of lessened the intensity and the drama, but still, it was alright. And the match, I thought was very mediocre, very disappointing. It didn't seem like their styles went very well together. They didn't have a whole lot of in-ring chemistry. Uh, and the ending of this match got outright stupid, where I like how the Dudleys are renouncing tables in order to get heat on them. I actually think that's a very good way for a heel to get booed, is when they discard the thing that made them popular to begin with. Um, and then they'll nevertheless bring out the tables anyway when it's convenient for them. So that makes them even more unlikable, at least in my eyes. However, what they do in this match was fucking retarded, where the Dudleys actually started pandering to the crowd as baby faces would, where they start actually encouraging the crowd to call for tables, and you're thinking, well, they're just going to say, screw you, we're not going to get tables. Nah, they get the tables, and they're fully prepared to use them, and the crowd gets excited, and then the Usos, escape with super kicks, and that causes the crowd to turn against the Usos because they want to see the Dudleys use the tables. So that was dumb. That totally deflated even the rather cool ending where the Usos frog splashed the Dudleys through the tables. It's hard to really feel that the intensity of that spot when the crowd had just kind of rejected the match because now they dislike the Usos because they robbed them of the Dudleys returning to their roots. And also, they got the pin from a super kick. What the fuck? So that wasn't a very good match. This wasn't a very good kickoff show at all. And the first formal matchup is on the main card is the Intercontinental Championship. Kevin Owens versus Dolph Ziggler versus The Miz versus Sami Zayn versus Stardust versus Sin Cara versus Zack Ryder. The booking of this was rather retarded because it made sense for Owens, Ziggler, Miz, and Zayn to have their battle royale, but the whole reason why Stardust, Sin Cara, and Zack Ryder were brought in was because they were not credible contenders for the belt. Kevin Owens was being a total dick by making it between those three, knowing that he could destroy any of them if he wanted. He could probably destroy all three of them if he wanted. And so already that leads to some booking issues. Half of the people in this match really don't deserve to be there. I'm talking in terms of their presentation, in terms of how they've been booked. I'm not dishing on the performers, since all of them are very talented. However, Zack Ryder won. And he was the one who was made to look the worst out of all these guys. I mean, at least, Sin Cara teamed up with Zayn and Ziggler, and they won a match against the heels. But Zack Ryder spent his last Raw before WrestleMania getting squashed by Jericho, even with AJ providing a distraction. So he's our new Intercontinental Champion, or he was. I hear that he's actually lost it to The Miz, who hasn't been booked that strongly either, but at least has enough history that I could buy his presence. But, I mean, the match was fine. I liked it. It was very heavy on spots, very intense, very fast-paced. Everybody had moments to shine, but Zack Ryder winning just sort of ruined it for me because he's just not a credible champion. They needed to book him stronger going into this for me to buy into it. So I'm going to stop this video and start another one. I'm already falling asleep right now.